Hi students, welcome to lesson number 4 on civilization perspective or civilization approach by N.K. Bose and Surjit Singh. Civilization approach refers to understand a society from its civilization. A civilized society is that whose relative freedom from the struggle for mere survival enables it to become more complex in its culture and structure. The civilizing process explains changes in the structure and culture of a society. Civilization approach stresses on complex structure of great and little traditions. It includes the studies on the tribal, rural and urban culture. This perspective also views civilization as an organization of specialists in functional relation to folk societies. The civilizational perspectives involve study of a combination of many subjects like analysis of classical and medieval texts, administrative records, village, caste and its wider network, and ultimately the issue of unity and diversity. The followers of this perspective believe that a social system, a nation or a civilization has to be understood in a historical civilization frame. Further, in order to understand the civilization, one has to undertake study based on cataloging cultural essence, the essential underlying process of cultural communications, enduring elements that are transmitted among the parts of the society. Now, we will discuss about N.K. Bose, Suraj Singh, Bernard S. Cohen and others whose civilization perspective in the understanding of Indian society. They have tried to explore the historicity, continuity and interlinkage of various structures in India. In this context, we should focus our attention on N.K. Bose and Surjit Singh. The students will be able to understand the civilization approach to understand society. They can analyze the change in the structure and culture of a society and evaluate the importance of cultural essence and cultural communication in civilization approach. Now, we will discuss upon the Nirmal Kumar Bose on the civilization perspective. Nirmal Kumar Bose was born in the year 1901 and 1972. Was born at Calcutta in Bengal. He made a remarkable fruitful life devoted in equal measures to the pursuit of science and the service of humanity. He received his school education from different schools of 3 states in the country, namely Bihar, Bengal and Orissa. He studied the first geology and then anthropology at the University of Calcutta. He taught for some time in the Department of Anthropology and was also director of the Anthropological Survey of India from 1959 to 1964. He was invited as visiting professor at the University of California, Berkeley and at the Department of Anthropology, University of Chicago in 1959. In 1967 and 1970, he held the high office of Commissioner for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes. He was drawn into the national movement at a young age and this gave a distinctive stamp to the scientific and literary work. In recognition of his excellent work in anthropology, Bose was awarded Anna Dale Gold Medal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1948. He was elected as the President of Anthropology and an Archaeological Section of Indian Science Congress in 1949. He was elected a Fellow of National Institute of Science of India in 1955. He was a devoted social worker and served in various capacities in many philanthropic organizations. He received Padma Shri in 1966. Bose was interested in Gandhi's ideas on the creation of new society in India and began by making a detailed study of his writings. He was Gandhi's secretary and close companion. What impressed Bose most about Gandhi was his search for truth through experience. Gandhi was, in his view, the quintessential field worker, always ready to see and listen and never drawing conclusions about a human situation without first experiencing it. Bose was very much influenced by Gandhi's The Story of My Experiments with Truth in 1957. As an anthropologist, Bose was no narrow specialist. He conducted archaeological excavation in Mayurbhanj and wrote with 𝗳𝗏 a pioneering work on the Paleolithic culture of the area. He wrote much in both Bengali and English. Bose has written authoritatively on temple architecture, a subject that was very dear to his heart. He had an abiding interest in the material culture of the tribal people and wrote with professional skill, technology of shifting cultivation on various crafts such as oil pressing, pottery and weaving. But as an anthropologist, he wrote mostly on society and culture in India, covering the entire range from the simple Joang tribe of Orissa to the complex metropolitan city of Calcutta. Canons of Orison Architecture, excavation Mayurbhanj, Hindu Samjer Garan, English translation by Andrew Bitted in 1976, studies in Gandhiism, cultural anthropology, peace and life in India, a study in Indian unity and diversity, culture and society in India, problems of natural integration, the structure of Hindu society, etc. Bose had basically interest in Indian civilization and culture. His approach was historical and inductive in nature. He developed a classification based on Indian textual categories to study the distribution of cultural traits. He was also a follower of the functional approach of Malinowski. This is highlighted in his work on nature and culture, that is, the adaptive function of culture. Bose, a great anthropologist, tried to present a single framework involving three approaches of ethnographers, Indologists and social historians. He emphasized the need to bring ethnology and Indology together in the study of Indian society. Along these approaches, the study of social history also became vital in our own understanding of Indian civilization. In his book, The Structure of Hindu Society, Bose gives civilizational view of Indian society. He has divided into three parts. First one, the domain of ethnography, where he presents material based on his work, fieldwork. Fieldwork is mainly done among tribal communities. Ethnological, where he presents an account of the theory and practice of Hindu social life, and social history. Bose uses ethnographic data to show the nature of tribal communities of Orissa and Chota Nagpur and the relations with wider community. He states that the tribal communities of India are not of the same nature and they do not share the same kind of relation with the wider society. He recognizes that there are certain broad stages through which the simpler communities generally pass. He uses two related criteria for classifying the tribal communities in India: the level of technological development and the degree of the geographical and social isolation. Bose did his anthropological fieldwork among the Juangas, often used this tribe as an example of communities left relatively untouched by what he calls the Brahminical civilization. Bose also discusses the two main tribes of Chota Nagpur, that is, Mundas and Oryans. These tribes are not only large in size but also represented at a higher level of technological development. The 19th century witnessed a number of social movements among Mundas and Oryans. The Oryans sought escape from Hindu domain in a return to an idealized past which, however, was constructed substantially from elements taken out of Sanskritic Hinduism. Oryans and Mundas were living the life of a pure Hindu. It is interesting to note that Hindu castes like Ahir, Lohar and Midha also join the tribal people in the celebrations, and unless one is told who is who, no distinction can be drawn between them. Hindus hardly left any economic freedom to this caste, but they left intact the original social and religious culture of the tribes insofar as that was possible. Their policy was not to eradicate beliefs and practices where they were not consistent with Brahminical moral ideas. The coexistence and interpenetration of the two modes of social organization, Brahminical and tribal, was investigated by Bose in the fields which clearly indicates his capacity as a field scientist. Bose seeks evidence from the domain of Indology to test his ideas about the design of Hindu society. He has taken material from a variety of sources such as the epics, the Smrithis, Buddhist texts, etc. Bose tries to identify the design of the Varna system from a reading of the epics and the Smrithis. He finds in them the continual attempt to explain the ranks occupied by particular communities according to their origin and function. Bose discusses the village life and focuses on the division of labor. Muslim rule brought some changes in Indian society. Some new crafts were introduced, but these were confined mainly to towns and cities. And even when they penetrated into the rural areas, they did not after the basic pattern of economic organization in the village. Bose gives two examples of attempts to challenge the very basics of Hindu social organization, that is, Buddhism in the ancient period and the Bhakti movement of Chaitanya in the medieval period. Bose felt that an exploration of the past would be used to the present and the future only if it were conducted in a truly scientific spirit. Using historical example, Bose discusses some of the ways in which the structure of Hindu society began to loosen and change under the impact of British rule. By examining the family history of the Sinhas of Raipur, Bose shows how the Sinhas took advantage of their connection with the East India Company to become traders, landowners, factory owners and professionals. The manner in which they moved from one occupational sphere to another within 3 or 4 generations was contrary to the spirit of the traditional economic organization and was made possible by the release of new economic forces. Bose attached great significance to the economic factor as a source of both stability and change in social life. Bose believed that one very prominent contribution of freedom struggle was that it narrowed down the society's diversity. He also talked about the importance of material or economic factors. He took special interest in the economic organization of the tribal people. He believed that the best way of classifying the numerous tribal group in India is not about language, religion or race, but by mode of livelihood. This type of classification enables one to see more clearly the relationship between the tribal and the non-tribal dimensions of Hindu civilization. Bose believed that the tribal and non-tribal people have been in continual interaction, and the key to understanding of this interaction lies in the different types of productive system under which they lived. Bose felt that the tribal people were under constant pressure to abandon their isolation in favor of absorption into the wider society. This pressure was generated mainly by economic circumstances. Similarly, Bose refers to the view that Muslim impact on India did not alter substantially the basic features of Hindu society, whereas the British impact did. The reason for this, according to him, is that the British brought with them a new technology and new system of production, which the Muslims did not. Besides the above, Bose also wrote on the following issues in the structure of Hindu society. First one, the study of architecture. Second, Indian civilization. Third, the caste system. Fourth, the tribal society. During his lifetime at Puri in Orissa, Bose came in contact with a master Shilpi, temple architect named Ram Maharana, who initiated Bose to the traditional canons of Orissαν architecture, Shilpi Shastra. He edited an Orient manuscript on Shilpi Shastra, which was later published in 1932. He learned from the field that a student of civilization will have to integrate information from various levels, the text as well as the product of arts. The elegance of ancient Orissαν temples fascinated Bose so much that he started giving lectures on these temples to the visitors of Puri. In his Jagdish Bose Memorial Lectures of 1971, Bose stated that Indian civilization was in contrast to the civilization of Europe. The civilization of Europe was essentially based on repeated experiences of war, leading to the spirit of nationalism. On the other hand, the civilization of India developed a pattern of cultural pluralism under relatively peaceful conditions. Indian civilization encouraged diversity of culture, but in its economic organization, it tried to weave all communities into a network of interdependence, but distinct entities. Bose stated that the study of civilization should be done in phase of expansion and confidence. In his Bengali article, The Temples of Konark, Bose refers to the expansion and confidence of phase of Indian civilization in a vivid manner. The different phases: phase 1, survey of selected material traits of India and mapping out the pattern of the distribution, linguistic areas. Second one, phase 2, study of a few selected important ancient craft techniques such as pottery and metal craft, study of carrying capacities on land of different productive techniques such as hunting and gathering, shifting cultivation, terrace cultivation, etc. Phase 3, study of social organization of crafts and caste association and mobility in different regions of India. Phase 4 talks about study of higher integrative institutions such as temples, the chain of mathas established by Adi Shankaracharya, and the kinships. Phase 5 talks about the study of the process of modernization in caste, occupation, urbanization, tribal movements and social movements in different regions of India. Bose has tried to capture the expressive modern thrust of Indian civilization through a number of critical character sketches of a few outstanding personalities. In a Bengali book, Nabino Prachin, he writes about Gandhi's Satyagraha and search of truth, Tagore's creative pursuits and paintings, Jamani Roy's views on 𝗵𝗻𝗃𝗃 paintings. In India, there has always been a history of cultural division. For example, the Aryan in north, the Dravidians in south. Bose observed that the division of Indian population on the basis of language was obvious on a different set of cultural divide in terms of items of material culture. Northwest continues with West Central Asia and East continues with South Asia. Bose tried to bring archaic link to indicate how regions or states of India, which are today separated by difference of language, share many elements of material culture in common. Thus, we find a pattern of unity in India, though it has different cultural zones. In his book, Peasant Life in India, a study of Indian unity and diversity, Bose proposes a pyramidal imagery of unity of Indian civilization. It is apparent that the degree of differentiation is less in respect of the country's social organization if the regionalization is in evidence to a certain extent in relation to the material arts of life. The structure of Indian unity can be compared to a pyramid. There is more differentiation at the material base of life and progressively less as one mounts higher and higher. Bose's interest in the study of caste system in India appeared in his mind when he was working among the untouchables in the slums of Bolpur town under the Gandhian reconstruction program. He rejected the myth of divine origin, reincarnation, and notion of purity and pollution. In a series of articles, Hindu Method of Tribal Absorption in 1941, Caste in India in 1951, and Some Aspects of Caste in Bengal 1958, Bose proposes that the root of persistence of the caste system is to be found in the economic and cultural security provided by the non-competitive hereditary vocational-based productive organization which operated in isolated village communities guided by general norm of inter-ethnic cultural tolerance. Besides having interest in change-oriented study of Indian caste system, Bose also developed interest in the study of caste as self-regulating corporate groups guiding the social life of their members. A number of studies on operation of caste association in different regions of India were initiated by him. In some of these, the roles of kings, temples, mathas, etc. were also brought into the focus in regulation of caste norms. In his various insightful papers on the tribal people, he attempted to highlight the tribal economy, absorption of tribes into the Hindu caste system, and the root of tribal separatist movement. In his book on tribal life in India in 1970, Bose has observed that bearing a very small fraction, there is little difference in economic life of tribal, peasant and artisan communities. The difference between our rural folk and urban classes is undoubtedly greater than that between peasants and the tribal communities so far as their occupations are concerned. 𝗂𝗽𝗍 studied the material traits for analyzing the distribution at various places in India. His understanding of the tribal people, absorption to caste, is a significant angle to analyze the unity of Indian culture. He focuses on how similar material culture helps in binding zones of India into one framework. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 Sinha was an anthropologist born in 1926 at Durgapur of Netrokona district in Mayamsingh division, then in Bengal and now in Bangladesh. He served the government of India in different capacities on anthropological issues. He was also Deputy Director of Anthropological Study of India, Calcutta. He has done extensive field work on the 𝗂𝗎𝗔 tribe of Bengal and Bihar. His special interests include tribal transformation in central India and the structure of Indian civilization. His work focuses on following themes: tribe caste and tribe peasant continuum, levels of economic initiatives and ethnic groups, tribal movements, sociology of religion, field studies on the people of India. Sinha examined the tribal caste interaction and proposed several useful concepts like tribal peasant continuum, Bhumish Kshatriya continuum as well as tribal Rajput continuum, which provides the model for understanding the process of transformation in the whole of Middle India. In his study of Bhumish scheduled tribes of West Bengal and Bihar, Sinha found that how tribals become integrated with the regional Hindu caste system. He tried to define two ideal levels of socio-cultural system, the tribal and the emergent level of Hindu peasantry, in terms of a set of characteristics in habitat, economy, social structure and ideological system. Sinha mainly concentrated on tribal society, caste groups and peasant villages for his theoretical and methodological analysis. The tribal society is isolated in ecology, demography, economy, politics and other social relations from other ethnic groups, but is strengthened by a strong in-group sentiment. Tribal society is a homogeneous society which lacks social stratification and role specialization. Tribes are disconnected from the great traditions of Indian civilization in terms of objective reality and objective awareness and equality. They lack systemization of ideas and a sophisticated division of culture and ethical religion. According to Sinha, caste is naturally connected, heterogeneous and stratified, and is characterized by social structural multi-features, multi-ethnic residence in the local community and inter-ethnic groups. It has stratified land tenure and are ranked and has interdependent interaction with other ethnic groups. Peasant village is a territorial community with multi-caste groups, multi-classes and its complex external relations with a heterogeneous region having specialized centers of civilization with diverse relationships. The cultural system of the peasants' village is heterogeneous in terms of internal division into caste. The tribal villages, in contrast, are typically uni-ethnic and their external relations are limited to villages lying in a homogeneous culture area lived in by the same ethnic group. The contacts of the tribes within the neighboring peasantry have given rise to a sort of tribal peasant continuum. Sinha's concept of tribe caste and tribal peasant continuum is mainly concerned with the processes by which tribes are integrated with traditional civilization of India. Sinha elaborates his conceptual ideas further by taking the examples of tribal groups. He has broadly discussed about the two prominent tribes, that is, the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 and the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 of Barabhum. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 of central India are tribal groups of Bastar district. They are the most isolated segment of the Dravidian Gondi-speaking people of central India. Marias are supposed to value the slash and burn form of cultivation in a very emotional way. They regard the crop as the combined labor of the village rather than of the labor of the individuals. If one suffers, all suffers, and all combine to support the old and the needy and to help each fellow villager to get through the heaviest part of the yearly round. Village is the main unit of cultivation. Maria has come into contact with about 4 or 5 artisan groups either at the market or as a wandering traders or as permanent settlers in their own village. The Maria social structure is essentially segmentary in character. The clans are regarded as equal in status. The tribe is the widest extension of kin-like ties, although in theory the tribe includes the entire Gond people in reality. The line of endogamy does not extend beyond the hilly Maria group. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 was characterized by the degree of social stratification and rank consciousness among these people, which makes them distinguishable from Hindu caste. They still retain a set of totemistic exogamous subdivisions closely resembling those of the Mundas and the Santals. During 1950-53 and 1956-59, when Sinha studied the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧, he observed that 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 had moved even farther in the direction of Hinduization since Risley's times. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧, like the neighboring Santals and Mahato, are settled agriculturists cultivating rice within the plough. Agriculture is mainly subsistence oriented and is not a major source for earning cash. The important cash crops are oilseeds and tobacco, but the main regular source of cash earning is rearing the lac resins on privately owned trees. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 have strong concern for individual ownership of land. The village headman holds a maximum hectares of land rent-free as service tenure, and he also gets rent from his tenants in the village. These various types of people include landowners, landless laborers, poor cultivators, substantial cultivators, and the village headman. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 are divided into a number of patrilineal endogamous clans or gotras, which are affiliated with the respective ancestral villages. The clans are segmented into functional patrilineage with equivalent status for the further segments. This imparts a sense of equality among the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 families, tied by a kinship that may possess wealth quite differentially. Apart from differential land holdings and position in the land revenue hierarchy, the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 are divided into several socio-ritually defined marriage classes, partly corresponding with the land revenue hierarchy. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 continue to worship many of their traditional gods and goddesses, such as Marangburu, the mountain god, various hill gods and goddesses of the sacred grove, and so on. Sinha, in his interaction with residents, found that a few 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 in the village of Madhupur became involved in self-conscious reflection on the Hindu ideological concepts under the influence of wandering Vaishnava sadhus. The religious theme of the celestial love of Radha and Krishna provides a major stimulus to the composition of the songs and the dances of Barabhum. The hierarchy principle is also expressed in male-female relationship restricting the sphere of activity and freedom of movement of the females as one moves up the social hierarchy. According to Sinha, the position of the 𝗵𝗕 in the regional caste system comes out in relief if we compare them with the partially hunting and gathering 𝗂𝗽𝗍 and 𝗂𝗧, who live in isolated hamlets in the foothills of Paragana Barahbum. They are not only ecologically isolated, but have not access to services of the ritual specialist castes too. Sinha, in his paper on tribal solidarity movements in India, clears social movements in context of the self-conscious socio-political movement aimed at asserting political solidarity of a tribe or a group of tribes. Therefore, his focus as an anthropologist is on political solidarity with exploring the social and cultural context of the movements. Sinha views that one of the major roots of tribal solidarity movement arise out of ecological, cultural isolation, economic backwardness, and feeling of frustration. Tribes who are either too isolated or too integrated with the Hindu social system are not involved in these movements. Sinha had found that the 𝗵𝗕 had undergone certain reform movements under the influence of Brahmin, priest, and some sectarian holy men in the 19th and 20th century. These movements have had some effect on their lifestyle and culture. Thus, for instance, the Brahmins taught the chiefs how to be proper Kshatriya and invested them with the notion of status full with intuitions, sacred thread, and noble lineage. The 𝗵𝗕, however, did try to betray their true descent by stripping off all customs, but the pace was not fast. It began to quicken in the beginning of 20th century when holy men were induced as their spiritual leaders. Sinha argues that one need not and should not encroach upon the cultural autonomy of those groups. Arrangements should be made for greater acquaintance with the emerging core of Indian national culture, so that the elite as well as the masses are oriented towards the core pattern rather than seek and escape model in the search for new identity. Sinha's perspective of Indian civilization. As an anthropologist, urgent anthropo research may be directed towards fully documenting the traditional core of the civilization in terms of significant contemporary social and cultural forms. This approach does not ignore the primitive strata, but only view the latter in the context of the dominant core of the civilization. Here again, the choice of problems may be guided by emphasis on either of the following concerns. First one, the study of forms and processes which are rapidly changing. Second, phasing of research in such a way that certain programs are first systematically completed on an urgent basis, so that the next stages of research may be taken up on the basis of sound groundwork. Third one, Sinha suggests that the primary emphasis should be on the second approach, while paying sufficient attention to the rapidly changing groups and traits. He points out the following areas of research. First one, studies on social and cultural economy. If you know something about the varied social and cultural organizations of agriculture through the village studies since 1950, very little work has been done in the fields of social and cultural economy of the artisans, fisher folk, nomads, and traders. Second one, studies on ethnic groups. India may be conceived as clusters of several categories of ethnic groups living in villages and towns, tribes, Hindu caste, religious minorities, etc. There is a need to conduct studies on a broad regional or all India perspective. Third one, studies on local communities. There is a need to study urban communities, although we have several anthropological studies on village communities since 1950. There is a need to study the relatively ancient towns of various functional categories located in different cultural regions of India, which would provide us an understanding of the traditional urban base of the Indian civilization. Fourth, studies on regional and all India networks and centers. The social and cultural forms are stabilized in terms of wider regions such as former zamindaris and feudatory states, dialects and language areas and all India networks of mathas and sects, etc. Therefore, it is essential to do studies on zamindaris and feudatory states, the regional patterns of the intergroup interaction, stratification, and the regional synthesis of styles of life. Fifth, studies on organization of specialists. Any civilization has its own mode of organizing specialists who live in urban as well as rural centers. It is known that the ancient pattern of learning Sanskrit as well as many of the higher arts such as classical music, dance, paintings and sculpture have undergone considerable change due to competition with emerging new forms and cultural demands in the society, and also due to the decline of traditional patronage. Both Bose and Sinha have developed the civilizational approach to Indian society and culture in order to explain and analyze the growth and expansion of Indian society from its original core to the modern complex form through assimilation and mixture. As they believed in the uniqueness of Indian civilization, they stressed on the creative potentialities of Indian social structure to develop resilience and commonality in spite of certain differences. Sinha was deeply influenced by the writings of Bose, and he attempted to endeavor a step further to explain the linkages in contemporary India. It may fairly be argued that Sinha started his analysis from where Bose left, as this evolutionary model attempts basically to understand and interpret cultural changes. He is criticized for ignoring the structural factors and processes. The cultural paradigm of Bose and Sinha has also failed to withstand the fact that classification of Indian tradition into two or more types has limited utility. Even the Sanskritic sources provide not one but many models, some of them involving even fundamentally opposed ideals. Yet, Bose and Sinha have demonstrated quite successfully the growth of cultural pluralism and diversity even within a unified socio-cultural structure of Indian society. One may utilize this approach in analyzing socio-cultural changes in contemporary India as well. Civilization approach to the society and culture in India is aimed at discovering and highlighting the threads of unity binding the plethora of ethnic groups encompassed by it, which practice at a certain level a great diversity of cultures, beliefs and faiths and values, and also material objects and practices, and still interact with one another in such a way as a sense of interdependence and unity grows among them and distinguishes their family or clusters from another family or clusters of culture practiced by a different set of communities. Bose's civilization approach helps the students of history in getting themselves sensitized to the roots of Indian civilization, which properly understood and interpreted may give clues to the ways of overcoming the series of strife plaguing life within the Indian nation. Civilization perspective refers to understand a society from its civilization. N.K. Bose and Surajit Sinha use civilization perspective in the understanding of Indian society. They have tried to explore the historicity, continuity and interlinkage of various structures in India.